So Adam, I met you in a class and you were telling me that you won the Moth 20 times. How did you do that?
Good question. Just not on purpose. I know it sounds kind of crazy to say something like that, but I just learned, yeah, not, I don't want to say like not being competitive, but like, I was just more focused to an extent. I mean, I'm not perfect, but to an extent, most of the time I went into it just trying to just tell a good story, and just trying to do a good job, you know. I
Okay,
think
so
sometimes the competition kind of, I mean, it becomes a competition, so it's kind of tough. I mean, I don't want to be hypocritical and say like it never happened, but I mean, you do get competitive, of course, but I always tried my best to at least just go up there and tell a good story and try to connect to an audience.
and is this the Moth in New York or where was this?
Yeah, the Moth in New York. At first, when the Moth is everywhere, it seems like now, but at the beginning, Margaret, I started about 19 years ago, and it was just in New York, and it was sometimes 1 to 2 times a month. It was at the New Eurekan Cafe in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and then at the bitter end in Greenwich Village, right on, I believe, Bleecker Street.
Okay. And then you live in New York, right?
Yeah, I live in Jersey City now, so outside. I don't want to be lying here. I want to give you true facts. So yeah.
What does that mean if you're living in New York? So I don't live in, not we, but I don't live in New York. So what
Yeah,
does
no
it mean?
problem. So Jersey City is, there's boroughs, but those are all in New York. Like Jersey City, Hoboken, it's kind of like the quote boroughs of Manhattan or New York to the west. So I'm about a 5 minute ferry ride or a 7 minute path train ride to New York City, and I'll be in New York. I'll be in either the World Trade Center or I will be like Christopher Street area. So
Okay. And then can you just describe, I've been to Christopher Street, but can you just describe what that means when you say the Christopher Street area?
sure. So it's like the West Village of Manhattan. So the first stop off is the West Village. So Greenwich Village is here. I don't know if I'm doing it right. To the west of that is like the West Village. To the east of that is the Lower East Side, kind of. I believe. Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, but
How long have you
that's pretty close.
and how long have you lived in New York? Oh, by the way, I put the link that people can see the podcast. People can see this interview in the chat.
Okay.
Facebook.com/Radio Girl Podcast. So,
Okay.
um, so how long
Should I
have
just
you?
put that on my? Should I just put that, Margaret, on my Facebook page right now, just so
Yeah,
they have
sure.
it?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
as
are
he's
live.
doing that, yeah, as he's doing that, so Adam and I met, and actually, I feel like I'm sort of friends with you, even though we've never met offline because we met
Oh,
in this.
I would consider you a friend,
Yeah,
Margaret. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
absolutely.
But I remember we during the pandemic, they started the WGA Writers Guild of America East started putting seminars and workshops online. And then you and I met in this coaching group. And then you asked me about
Yeah.
podcasting. And then I called you and we talked about it. And that's a great group. I met you and some other great people in there.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful to Dana Weissman and the Writers Guild East for doing these monthly workshops with Jim Arnoff. It's a highlight of being a member of. For me, it's one of the big highlights of being a member of the WGA. Just a lot of nice people, and it seems like it's a first Friday group. Anybody in the WGA can join it. It's starting to become kind of like, say, like 6 or 7 regulars and then like a few others. But it's all about quality, not quantity. The people that are in there, like yourself,
Yeah.
are just awesome. Jill and we got Karen S. I mean, we got a lot of nice people.
Yeah. And I always thought that the WGA, well, first of all, I could never go to WGA events because it was always in New York, literally.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good things about the pandemic is it opened up a lot of events to people throughout the world. So that's one of the examples. And it's really
No,
great. So
totally.
yes, that's where you and I met. But okay,
Yeah.
so how long have you lived in New York? And you're from New Hampshire, right?
Yes. So I've been here for 24 years now, 24 years and a couple months, but who's counting? Yeah,
And what's it
yeah, yeah.
and what's it like? I mean, what's it like to live in New York compared to, isn't New Hampshire more countryside?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like for where I grew up, it's like Manchester, Hooksett area of New Hampshire, so central New Hampshire, and very suburban to rural. Yeah.
So was that a big shock when you went to New York?
Absolutely, absolutely. I went to a small school. I went to even a smaller town, Keene, New Hampshire, Keene State College in Keene, New Hampshire, for college for 4 years, and that was a lot smaller than where I grew up. And so, yeah, New York was huge, huge. It was a culture shock in a good way, though. I was excited for it, and I felt like in college, Margaret, I became. I felt like a big fish in a small pond. I knew everybody, and when I say I knew everybody, I knew a lot of my classmates, but then I knew the guys at the pizza place, at the gas station, at the movie theater. So I felt good,
And then what's that like to live in New York? I mean, Chicago's a city, but I think New York is more intense. That's the impression I get.
The great thing with New York, and this has probably been said a million times, is like, you can get on a subway and you can go a couple stops and you get out and it feels like you're in a whole different place. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I love that about it. I mean, and you get Central Park. I'm sure there's parks in Chicago as well. But I
Yeah.
mean, you have Washington Square Park. Was it is it Gramercy Park? So there's just like a ton of parks, and yeah, I like little coffee shops and pizza places. I like pizza. I don't like expensive pizza. I kind of like cheap pizza. So there's a lot of like $2 to $3 sliced pizzas.
That you do
I
fold it
like nice
over.
pizzas. Huh? Yeah, oh, yeah. But there is a place, I believe it's called Emmett's. I don't know if it's still open. I haven't been since before the pandemic, but I believe it's on like Thompson Street. They have great, I mean, I don't know. It's the only Chicago pizza style pizza I've had, Margaret. So I shouldn't say it's the best
Right.
Chicago, but it's very good. It takes a lot longer, right? To cook Chicago style. Cause
Well, if
like
you're
you're
talking about,
there and
yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah, if you're talking about the
like
thick
the
kind,
deep
yeah.
dish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it takes
yeah,
45 minutes. Yeah. And people think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's like lasagna and is a big commitment. But when it gets really freezing here, like 10 degrees, you want to eat that kind of pizza because you want to be full and survive the cold and snow and everything. So it works out. But
Yeah.
okay, so New York. So how do people make it in New York? I mean, seriously, like, I mean, you're a successful storyteller and you have this successful Audible content going. What's that like to try to get your work noticed over there?
It's a struggle. I mean, you're constantly struggling, which with the classes we take online and in these groups we're in together, and there, a lot of people are coming to these classes and speaking. You take great comfort, Margaret, knowing that other people are always struggling. And I'm reading a lot of books, listening to books on like the William Morris Agency and a lot of just like things, and it's just how all these, you think they're stars and they just get all these projects greenlit. Like
Right.
there's just so much failure for all of it. But I think it's growing. I don't want to say failure, but and I think that's with me too. I mean, you just keep plugging away, and it's weird. People outside of your kind of like work bubble or whatever just think it's easy, and it's not. But I love it. And I love being creative. I would love to have a TV show and be writing that, and and focusing fully on that. But I had a show last night in Beacon, New York, the Artichoke Show. Drew and John. It was like a great show. I went up there, and with the pandemic, I just forget how much I really truly enjoy performing live as well, Margaret.
Where is that? Beacon, New York? Where is that?
Yeah, it's about almost like 2 hours north of New York. I don't know exactly. I was in a car. Shout out to Carla, a fellow storyteller, Carla Katz, who drove. It was just kind of on GPS, so I didn't really we were just catching up, but it was a good hour and 40, 50 minutes out of New York, but it's beautiful. It was really nice. I think with the pandemic, Margaret, a lot of people, I don't know if they're moving back, but when it first started, people were all going out there to places like that. And it was really nice. I mean, I could see why some people would move up there, and if they could work from home, they're not coming back.
Yeah. Now, were you in the city the whole time during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Hoboken, so I live in Jersey City now. I've been here for a year, but prior to that, for 19 years, I lived in Hoboken, and yeah, so I mean, I was in Hoboken for a good 14 months straight, and I think I went into the city twice or three times, two times for my teeth, to get my teeth, and then one time, and I think they were all tooth related journeys into the city during like those 14 months. But I didn't go home to New Hampshire to see my family. I mean, I was pretty much in my apartment. I'm kind of, I don't want to say OCD, but I mean, I care about my health, and I was trying not to get it. You know what I mean? I was trying to do everything we were supposed to do. So I lay low.
But when I think of Hoboken, I still think it's pretty populated compared to a lot of places in the US.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a mile square, Margaret, but there's, I mean, where everybody's on top of each other. You know.
Yeah, so you're still essentially in a city, I think, because there are people who live in areas where there may be 30,000 people tops, and they have a lot more land, so they're able to social distance easily. So
yeah, and it was tough. It was tough, and you know, there's a nice little like university. Actually, I do workshops there. It's a great community. The Stevens Tech. It's like a small college, like in the heart of Hoboken. And, you know, even like I used to take kind of like my serenity walks there. It's a beautiful, like, you know, you're walking, you feel like you're in like this rural New Hampshire college. And then you look to the side and you see like the New York skyline. You know, it's like unbelievable, but they shut it down. I mean, they had like barriers and everything. You couldn't walk in there. So it was just finding places to walk outside was really tough because I didn't want to be around a lot of people during the pandemic. So I found a route to the, it's not the dump, but it's like where you flush your toilet, and that's where it goes. So I found a place. There's people don't want to be walking around that. So, but it was peaceful, you know. And you know, I wasn't freaking out, you know.
Yeah, I can relate because I live in a city too, and I was so scared to go outside, but I had to because I go to work and so forth. But so
Yeah,
let's get
yeah.
back. Let's get back to the Moth. Okay, so you were in the Moth, and so every time I'm in something with you, you say you're a 20-time Moth winner. How does the Moth work? I've heard it only on NPR.
Yeah, no problem. So there's several things that the Moth does now as a nonprofit. They do a lot of community storytelling, which is great. They also have Moth Story Slams, which for a majority of my time, which that's what I did with the Moth, where they'll give you a theme a few weeks prior to the event. You can buy tickets, and anybody can put their name in the hat. And what the rules are is you need to tell a story 5 to 6 minutes. It's got to be a true story based on the theme, and you know, and it's, yeah, and see what you got So it's open to everybody, and you should be the main character in the story. And then they have judges there. They have judges, and they just pick them up. Like, you know, whoever's like waiting in line, they'll ask, like, is anybody telling a story here? Do you want to judge? So they'll have 3 judges. So it's almost like the Olympics. So as the night goes, they pick one name, then the next name, then the next name, and everybody, they tell their stories. There's judges, and they take a nice intermission. They usually say it's a 15-minute intermission. It's usually a little longer, but that's a good thing because you get to talk to your friends and build a community, which we did doing the slams. Then we come back the next 5, and then at the end of the night, they look at the score. Whoever has the most points, you know, scale 1 to 10 wins. So yeah.
And who's judging? The audience?
Just there's small groups in the audience. They'll pick 3 small groups. And the other thing that, Margaret, that the Moth has is a main stage. So at first in the New York years, they would just perform mainly like at the Players Club on Gramercy in New York. Sometimes they would do, I think it's Cooper Union. They would perform there. Sometimes, and as it continued to grow, now it's all over the place. But for me, I was lucky that I got to do the main stage with it's longer stories, not 5 to 6, more like 10 to 12 minute stories. But you get to tour. I got to tour the country and parts of Mexico and Toronto with the Moth. So as part of their main stage, and they're curated stories. They help you and work with you on that particular story. And it was wonderful. Yeah, just a wonderful experience. And then from that, of course, it grew out the Moth podcast and the Moth radio hour. And as these things were continuing to build, then they started to have story slams in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and it just kind of exploded, and it was on the HBO's Girls with Lena Dunham, and that really really gained a lot of traction as well. And I happened to be on that. I happened to be on that episode. If you watch.
What? Okay, wait. Let me break it down. Well, first of all, I want to ask you about that. But first of all, how did you get to travel with them?
They have curated main stage shows, and they started booking. I got to go. And they asked me to go. I mean,
but how were you selected? Like, is it because you won a lot, or your stories were good, or what? They just chose you, or what?
Yeah, I mean that's a strong possibility.
Oh, you don't know how you got chosen? They just asked you.
I think that had something to do with it. Yeah.
Nice. And then how are you on Girls? My gosh, let's talk about that. What was that?
Yeah, like? So they did like a Moth episode, and at the time I had just been on Inside Amy Schumer twice, and they had the same casting department. And I knew from comedy from the early aughts, a person that was in the casting department, and they said we have to cast like storytellers and people at a Moth story slam. Like we have to cast Adam Wade. So they cast me. I think my name, the credit or whatever, like when they gave me the sheet was like Moth, knowledgeable Moth person or something like that. So and I have like a line, when you're telling stories at the Moth, one of their main things is that you cannot use notes. You're not supposed to use notes. So Lena Dunham's character had notes, Hannah, and I said, Hannah, no, like, what are you, an idiot? You can't use. I'm not a very good actor, but it's like, what are you, an idiot? You can't use notes, and so she got all upset, and then she ran on stage without her notes. So that was my line. And when we did them, I'm known through the Moth community as being someone that is complimentary and gives comfort to people, not one that will yell at people the rules. So it was against my part was against type, but as far as Lena Dunham and Jenny, who was directing that episode, they said I nailed it.
Good. Well, let's go back to Amy Schumer. What did you do for her?
Sure.
What did you do?
I was in a sketch called, and you can YouTube it. It's called Hello, My Lady, and it's with Neil Casey and with Amy, and then I'm trying to think. There was like a bunch of other nerds kind of characters. So, yeah. And Christine Nagel, the Christine that spoke into our class, she was a couple of classes ago. She was also in that. Yeah.
And how did you get that?
I believe I went into audition for it, but I believe
in New York.
Yeah, one of the executive producers was Jessie Klein, who has a new book out that's terrific. Google her. But she was an executive producer for Inside Amy Schumer, and they and I used to do comedy with her from when I moved here. She's incredibly talented, and I think that had a hand in my casting, I believe.
Wow. Okay. And then what was it like to be on that show?
Yeah, it was great. I was very nervous, Margaret, the first day going in, because I'd been on Conan a bunch of times, Conan O'Brien, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, but there were small like very, very small parts. This, I actually had a line, and I was nervous. Maybe a couple lines, I should say. I mean, It got me in the SAG,
Right.
Screen
Oh, you're in
Actors
SAG-AFTRA
after.
too. So
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
just
oh yeah,
WGA,
yeah.
you're also SAG-AFTRA.
No, yeah, I'm a multi-union
Wow. Okay.
person. So yeah, I'm trying to think. So yeah, I'm trying to think. So I went in and I did the audition, and I went in. I was really nervous, and I'm at the craft services, and Amy Schumer walked right to me, and she said, "Hi, Adam. I'm so happy you're here." And she talked to me for like 2 minutes. I mean, she was busy. It's her show, but she took the time to do that. And again, I had like one line, but she was so nice and authentic. And
Nice.
I swear, like all it takes from me is if I feel relaxed, I'm good to go. I don't know how great of a performer I am, but if I'm relaxed, I know I'm a better performer. And she was just very, very, very nice. And as well as Lena Dunham, I mean, these are the like two main parts of it. But we were there on like the stairway at Housing Works bookstore on Crosby Street in Soho. And we were there, and we were talking about Hoboken. Her boyfriend at the time had performed at Maxwell's many times in Hoboken, and she was just really nice too. And once again, it was very authentic. It wasn't like a phony nice. She was genuinely asking me a lot of questions about the Moth, this and that. And yeah, and I was so comfortable. I mean, that's why it was that part was actually more difficult, because like I had to yell at her after she was like really nice to me.
Right.
You know.
It reminds me of Charlie, Willy Wonka, where he had to tell Charlie off the air, okay, I'm gonna have to yell at you, so don't get upset or don't be upset, etc. And then they filmed it that way, and he was really rude to Charlie, little Charlie, and so forth. But okay, so I assume that these shows were produced in LA. Are they totally New York shows, or
Oh
what?
yeah, both in New York, both in New York. Yeah.
Well, so what's that?
Fortunately.
Yeah, because I always assume that visual stuff is in LA. But what's that like to, live in New York for a while and then get in these shows? Not just
I
to
mean,
be writing or
it was a good run. I mean, it all happened like very, very quickly. It was like yeah, I mean, I put my first album out, my comedy storytelling album. It's called The Human Comedy, Adam Wade. It's free on YouTube. If you do go to YouTube after this podcast, it's there. And if you want to buy it, it's on Amazon. But yeah, like that came out. It did very well. I started working on some projects, and then I got cast in both of those shows within like a couple months. And then I
did
had
you
a
have
New
an
Yorker piece, right after that. Sarah Larson wrote a long piece about me, profile in the New Yorker. That
wait
there
a
was a
second.
lot that had a lot to do with the girls episode in the Moth. Yeah,
Okay, wait. So you got on these shows and this album and so forth without an agent?
without an agent or
So you don't
manager.
necessarily need an agent to get in TV or streaming or whatever. Okay, well I
I
guess
mean,
you
I
didn't.
don't know.
You did. Okay. And
I
so then
mean,
you wrote it. So how did the New Yorker, how did that happen?
the woman that wrote that article, I had gone to a Yankee game with years ago. A friend of mine worked for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and he got tickets to the Yankees Red Sox game.
Oh, that's exciting.
And it was Lauren Michaels tickets behind home plate. So I was on. I mean, I was on TV on Fox Sports. Like for a Yankee Red Sox game, we were behind the plate. It was like it was Patrick Burley, Greg Johnson, and Sarah Larson and myself, and we sat behind there. And it was great. It was one of the greatest things. We had sandwiches before. I was very upset because we had sandwiches before, and when we went there, I mean, we could eat. It was like all you can eat. So and that's in her. So like, I mean, I kind of stayed acquaintances with her, and then she had listened to the album and loved the album. And when she saw me on Girls, she wanted, it was like a timely thing. So she wrote a piece. She interviewed me and she wrote a piece,
Wow,
which
that's
was
incredible.
really, yeah. And I mean, it's a great. I mean, she gets me. She gets what I'm trying to do. So
What does that
it was
mean?
like really.
What does that mean that if somebody gets you, they know what you're trying to do?
She kind of, she like who I am. I like a good sandwich. I like a good milkshake. I like simple things. And my stories that I tell on stage kind of reflect the type of person I am.
Nice. And so what are you trying to do? Like
Right
when you
now,
tell your stories. Well, no, I don't mean professionally, but you said she gets me what I'm trying to do. What do you mean by that? What are you trying to do?
like extremely personal moments that could be possibly be universal, and trying to connect to people, not hurting people, trying not to hurt people, just trying to build people up, and just my view of the world, and yeah, with compassion, treat people with compassion. Um, yeah, that kind of stuff, like the love for the simple things. I mean, we are just talking before about pizza. I'm as comfortable getting a $3 pizza or a $2.50 pizza than I'm getting like a $40 pizza. I'm not. I'm less comfortable with that. I like, and I like to talk to the pizza guy, and I like to, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because even when I met you in class, it seems like, or no, sorry, through the coaching, the group that we meet with, you seem very friendly and helpful and encouraging, so I don't feel so alone. But I was gonna say, what's up with Conan and Brian? What did you do for him?
Well, I was an NBC page. Margaret, when I moved here in 1998, I lived at NYU for 10 weeks at Rubin Hall, which is on right near Washington Square Park. And I had 10 weeks to make it. I had literally 10 weeks to make it. I didn't know a soul here. And if things didn't go well after 10 weeks, I was going to be taking the bus with my backpack and my guitar and my sheets back to New Hampshire. So I was able to get a job, which I still think after 24 years and 2 months is my biggest break. I was able to get a job in Times Square at a barbecue restaurant called Virgil's Barbecue. And they adopted me. They took care of me. And finally, right off within 2 weeks, I had a community and I had money coming in. So they helped me find housing in New Jersey by the George Washington Bridge, which is way up. It would take to get to the Lincoln Tunnel into New York City. It would take about an hour, but it was my own place. I got a basement apartment next to a cemetery, and they said, I go like, how do I break into showbiz? And they all said like Regis Philbin had been an NBC page. You should try to be an NBC page. So what I would do is every other Monday after my shift, I'd work a lunch shift. My shifts were Saturday lunch, Sunday double, Monday lunch. So after my lunch shift on Mondays, I'd walk 6 blocks up to 30 Rock where the building is NBC, and I go to the mezzanine and I drop off a resume and a cover letter for the NBC page program. And I did that for 2 years, almost 2 years. And they finally called me back and they said, is this Adam Wade? And I go, yeah. And they go, this is the NBC page program. And I got really excited. They're like, don't get too excited. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah. And it was like the head of the page program. And she's like, I'm looking at your resume, it's something, you went to Keene State College, you were a radio DJ, and you've been working at Virgil's Barbecue. But like, Adam, I've been here for a long time, and you're kind of like a joke in this office, not a bad joke, but like we love it. Like it's we know every other Monday when your resume is coming up. Like we know, and what would happen was, this goes to like, who are you and why you and why you perform. I got to know the male people very well in the mezzanine when I go up there. So they would make sure after about a month, after about probably 4 or 5 times bringing the resume, my little resume was up top. So when it would go up, it would always be on top. So she's like, I got a stack of resumes here. I've saved them just because you're, and she's like, I've been here a long time. No one's ever continued just to send resumes every other week. So she's like, come in and talk to us. She's like, I can't guarantee you anything, but we'll give you a shot. And when I went in, this is interview skills 101, not to do, but I did a little crying. I was scared. It was 2 years. I liked the people at Virgil's, but if you've ever waited tables in a Times Square restaurant, it's busy. It's not like it's busy. You're working. You're on your feet. You're working. There's not a lot of downtime. And I connected to them and I got hired. So when you're an NBC page, you do tours around the building and then you work particular shows. It's only a 1-year program, not like the TV show. It's 1 year, then they send you along. And you get to do different assignments. And then, Margaret, it's like a glorified intern, and one of the assignments I had was at Conan, and I really connected with the staff there, particularly with some of the writers, but mainly some of the production staff, and including like the camera guys and the sound guys. They really so and casting. The casting people were very, very nice there too. So every once in a while they put me in like a bit, and it was like a little extra money, and it was nice, So I got a couple bits in there. And Conan was very nice. He was very nice to me always. The great thing is, years after, this is just a quick Conan O'Brien story. After I was the page there, I was a page there probably for about 3 months. And then I helped out. What I would do is I would drive a production van with people if they were doing remote shoots. Shout out to Jason Chalemi, who was the production coordinator. I'd go like, Central Park. We go all these places. When they had Triumph, the talking dog, I would drive them around. Sometimes he'd knock on the car. I mean, he knew I was like a nervous guy, but he would knock, so I'd shut off the engine. Robert Smigel. But Conan, like I'd been doing that for about 3 or 4 years, like on and off. And one night we were filming something like way in Jersey, like in a nice community. And it was a kid, like you could probably YouTube this, but he was like Christmas caroling. He was doing Christmas caroling, and he had like carolers, and he was just going to people's houses. It's like a really funny bit. But he was freezing. It was really cold, and he got into my van because it was warm. And he hadn't seen me in about 2 years. And he looked over, and I go, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Wade," and it was just like the night. And I talked to him for about he's like, "All right, I better. We actually have to work those people out there." But he's a gem, really good guy.
That's a good memory, because think about all the thousands of people he deals with, or hundreds of people, and the fact that he would remember you. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, okay,
I mean, I totally.
So when you say that you talk to these people and you get along with them, does it come from your smallish town? I'm just like putting in quotes, your non-New York City background, that people talk to each other, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think part of coming here and not knowing a soul, you have to be outgoing. I mean, and I'm kind of a shy person, but you in those senses you have to be. So like when I worked at Virgil's, I mean, I constantly, this was 1998. I walk around with like a pad. I'd just be like, where do you get a hot dog? Where's what's the difference between Grand Central Station and Penn Station? And I'd write all that down. So when I get to 30 Rock, it was very much the same type of thing. I knew it was a year. I knew this is like, they say it's harder to get in the page program than it is to get into Harvard. You know what I mean? And they turn away a lot of people. They turned away me for 2 years. But I had this thing where I would go, that whole year, anybody I saw, I'd just walk up to them and I'd just say, like, what do you do here? And, and I'd ask them questions. And what I found out was like people really liked telling me what they did. And I wasn't going up to like executives. I'd go up to the custodian. Like, what do you do here? Like, I'm a custodian, but like, what do you do? Well, I clean this floor. I do this floor. The security guides, what do you do? Where are you from? I'm from France. Why are you here now? Well, my wife, we came over. What did you used to do? I was a soccer star. I'd find out all these things. So one of my assignments in the building, this was probably one of my proudest moments in my 24 years here. I was a NBC page assistant to a very famous in TV tech studio operations vice president, and for like 3 months. And we'd walk to lunch together down the hall, and people would say hi to me. And they'd all know my name. And I'd be like, "Hi, Jerry. Hi, Felix." This and he's like, you know more people than I do. And you've been here for 6 months. And it was just like, yeah, might be good to walk the halls, and talk to people.
It's really great. Yeah. I think if I were ever an executive, I'd be walking the halls and getting to know people, because I think sometimes people stay in their office and they're cut off. So, but
Well, they used to call me Rich. They used to call me Ritzy like in the commissary. Because I told you I was living NBC Page program, Margaret. They charge you $10 an hour. You get $10 an hour. I mean, and I think it just barely went up, but I mean, for the longest time, it was still $10. So I'm living in a basement apartment next to a cemetery in Fairview, New Jersey, trying to save some money so I can get out of the basement. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you're a neurotic person and you're living in a basement next to a cemetery, you're going to start thinking about zombies for real. When it rains, I mean, it was like crazy. But so I'd always eat Ritzies. I'd have I have one right here. I'm traveling. I'd bring like a sleeve of Ritzies and I'd eat the Ritzies. And the guy that was the head of the commissary was a nice guy. I talked to him a lot, and he'd be like, "Hey, Ritzy." He started calling me Ritzy. And then other people started calling me Ritzy because I'd eat lunch. That's all I'd eat. So one day he goes, "Nothing for nothing, Ritzy. Why are you always eating Ritzies?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm living in a basement, this or that. I'm making $10 an hour. I'm trying to save up some money here so I can get out of the basement." And he gave me he was always like a funny guy, Margaret. And he just gave me like a sad look and he left. And he came back and he goes, "Come by my office tomorrow at 11:45 and knock twice." Whoa. And I was like, all right. And it was kind of weird, So I went over there and like I knocked twice and he opened the door and he had a bag of chips, a Sprite, and a turkey sandwich. And he said, "For now, every day, as long as you're a page, you come here at 11:45, you knock on the door and you have lunch on me." So it was like I didn't meet Warren Michaels. I didn't have those kind of connections, but those were the connections that I had. And I think if you're looking long term, those were the type of connections I wanted to make. You know what I mean? And those were, when you said, how do you survive in New York? That's how I survived.
But when you were asking people about them, is it because you were naturally curious, or did you have a plan, or what?
No, absolutely. I wanted to learn. The Page program was like graduate school. I probably learned more, and you're working there. You're working with all these kids like your own age, and socially it was great. We went out to bars every night or went to shows, this or that. But during that day, like I wanted every minute, to me, every minute counted for something. I'd go in days I wasn't working. When I was finished being a page, I would still be going into the building because I worked weekends at NBC Sports, but I didn't have a job for like about 6 months. I had made connections where I was in like a new media department. They literally had a cubicle for me. I go in every day. And it was because I talked to people. So most people thought I would use if I needed to go see the NBC nurse. I was an employee, like a full-time, because I was always there,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love New York. Just you talking about all this makes me really think about New York, because New York is so people oriented. I think I haven't been there in several years. But that's the impression I get. I went there several times, and I haven't been there many years, but I just noticed a lot of people network intensely, and some people do it in a kind of way that they want to get something, but some people do it like just to get to know people. And it seems like that's how people build what they want. It's just so great. Or you run into people or.
Oh, it's a small world. It's a small community. And the thing is, when I moved here, the biggest fear I had from this kid from New Hampshire that just only knew New York through movies was that I wasn't going to meet nice people. And, in 24 years, I got to tell you, the countless, like incredible humans that I've met, in this time. So it's just, there's just a really, really good people. I mean, anywhere there's jerks and there's this and that, but I've been very, very fortunate. Whether it's storytelling, whether it's Virgil's Barbecue, whether it's, the UN, I worked for UNICEF. Just a lot of good people, a lot of good people.
Yeah, I agree, because I was talking to Dana Weissman, the person from the WGA, and she's from there. And I said, New York has such friendly people. And she said, it's interesting you say that, but yeah, because people get this impression. Yeah, because people are busy and it's a small island. It's about to explode, it seems, with all these people there. But that's the impression I got too when I went there. I thought, oh my gosh, they're just so, and also they're very interesting. People are so individualistic and pursuing different interesting things. So,
well, that's why like a person like Dana has that job at the Writers Guild. Always positive, always helpful. If you need, I have a question, just email me. and then, go to this person, go to that. So it's, yeah. I seem to bond with people like that too,
Yeah.
I cling towards them,
Well, think about getting in the page program, which you said was very difficult. Do you suggest that people are persistent like that? Like, what suggestions do you have for people who want to get into some kind of difficult business?
Yeah, really, think about what you want. There was times I was crying. There was one time, after about a year and a half of dropping off the resumes there, I came home and I went to like the A&P supermarket in Fairview to pick up some stuff. And there's like a big rock in front of it. And I sat on the rock and I just started crying. And you have, these moments but there was like no way I was going to go back to New Hampshire. So I think having some sort of struggle, and it seems like, 24 years, still chipping away. They're all tests, and what you want, and I'm still going.
Well, let's get back to the storytelling thing, because I think you're a really great storyteller. How do you know how to do stories on the fly? For instance, at the Moth, when they give you a theme.
Yeah, I don't do them on the fly. Not doing them on the fly. It's called preparation. So, they'll give you a top. Some people might do it that way. Your success rate is not as good. And, I'm not going to lie and say like I haven't winged it or whatever. It might have worked once or twice, but your batting average is probably like 200, where if me personally, if I prepare, it's probably like 800 to 900, So, I put a lot of time into it.
Yeah. So how do you create a good story? How do you do that? You teach it, actually. Yeah. Actually, where do you teach storytelling?
Yeah. I teach at the Magnet Theater. You can go to the magnettheater.com, or you could go to adamwade.com/classes. For me, Margaret, to be honest with you, I listen to a lot of stories. I work on my own stories. It's just, if you're a writerly person, these stories are 5 minutes, so you're learning how to edit. I think I did a lot of my learning by being terrible on stage. I think Steve Martin said it, getting up on stage, that's the key. And going back to Conan, the head writer at Conan at the time was a guy by the name of Mike Sweeney. I believe he still works with them, and he has a podcast that he talks about working at Conan show. I hope he's doing other things, but besides talking about Conan, and I'm sure he is. He's an extremely talented guy, a former lawyer, and he took the time, and I'm extremely grateful to him. He took about 10 minutes to talk to me when I was a page. So this was a higher profile person I was talking to at the time. I'm an NBC page. I'm talking to the head writer for Conan about comedy and what to do. And he said, and this was 22 years ago, and I remember what he said. He goes, "Adam, get on stage." He goes, how many times are you performing a month? And I'm like, performing a month, like 2 or 3 times. He's like, no. He's like, he goes, you're only going to get better if you got to get up on stage. And it was, so a lot of the learning comes from like what Mike said, like it's getting on stage, just getting on stage nonstop. Like I said, to this day, I'm grateful. And when people ask that question, there were so many times I was awful, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that again. And even at the Moth, when I would do well, like it was like, how can I do better? And what didn't work? So a lot of it is like, but you can read books, this and that, go on the internet. You got to get up on stage. You got to get up on stage, because what it becomes for me, that's why I always say, like, number one, you got to connect to the audience. If you want to be a really good performer, a really good storyteller, you got to connect to this. They got to relate to you in some way. And, whether the ending's too long, whether you're going on and on and on, which I'm kind of doing right now, like stop, so just finding these things out, sometimes it takes longer than it should. But I think working really hard on stories, trying to edit, seeing what works, speaking from the heart, Stuff like that, evolving, constantly evolving. I was very much a caricature of myself for many years. I used to have a guitar, which was like a shield. I got rid of the guitar because I was awful. Imagine this voice singing. So it was like a lot of that type of thing, stuff, like getting on stage. Mike Sweeney,
Yeah,
great advice.
Well, it's also with stand-up comedy, because some people are writing and practicing and so forth, and you got to go there to see if you bomb or not, and then you learn from that, and every day is fresh. So
absolutely, and you have hopefully like a less fear of bombing. You know what I mean? And you think about who the audience was. If this was awful, I mean, the greatest thing with the Moth is their audiences, and it's trickled down into other storytelling shows that they have, where they want you to succeed. They're not going to heckle you, and they're listening, Margaret. They're actually listening. They're carefully listening to you, because they're there to not to laugh. They might cry, but they're there to connect. They're there to connect.
Yeah. What does it feel like to be on the stage?
It's unbelievable. I mean, I performed last night for about 100 people in Beacon, New York. And I haven't done much. I've probably done five or six live shows. Most of them are class shows. Like I perform sometimes at my own class's show, tell a short story. And it's unbelievable. I still get nervous. I was nervous last night, not like crazy nervous, but I was definitely nervous. But you get up there and you just start to, and the room is paying attention. They're laughing, they're crying, they're enjoying the stories. There's not a feeling. I have not come close. I don't do drugs. I have a beer or two every once in a while, but there's no other feeling like that I've ever had in my life. It's magic. It's really, really magic.
Yeah, it seems like people who also are actors, if they act on the stage, they say it's so much different than doing film or TV, because they feel the response of the audience and they can change Absolutely. How they are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Spinal Tap. I mean, everything's going well. It goes to 12. It goes to 13. Like last night, it was just, it was like amazing. Amazing high.
So then, okay, so you've done the Moth, and now what's with the Audible that you're doing?
That's very successful. So if you go to audible.com/Adam Wade.
So basically people should remember your name, Adam Wade, and just, they can find you.
It's you ought to know Adam Wade. So, I put together, it's a, you're a writer, so it's like a screen. It's a movie for your ears. It's a biopic for your ears. It's a story of my life, how I get into storytelling. My journey from New Hampshire here, from my family, stories about them. And it's the best thing I've ever done. If you're an Audible subscriber, if you subscribe to Audible, it's free. You can download it for free. If you're not, I think it's like $7.95, and it's. I worked on it for about 2 years straight, and it's the best thing I've ever done. It has over 10,000 reviews. Jim doesn't like to say. I say most of them are good, but I mean it's people that like it really, really like it. Yeah.
No, I saw the reviews, and your average is very high. Your average is like just south of 5 stars. So yeah, of course, not everybody's gonna like everything, but.
No. And you know what? You don't want everybody to. Yeah.
And so how many episodes is it?
It's just one full, they say it's like an audio podcast, but it's 1 2-hour and 47-minute like podcast audio book. Like it's kind of like an audio. I know we're not supposed to say kind of, right? It's kind of an audio book, kind of a podcast type.
Well, we're not in class right now, so it's okay. You can say whatever. This is my interview. So, and you said it took 2 years. What was your process in writing it?
Well, I mean, at the time, the people that were at Audible, they're no longer there. They have other jobs, but they helped me with it, and I would throw them ideas and how I wanted to do it, and they would come back. And the great thing working with Audible was they didn't try, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they knew that. And they were really, very, very, very good producers. I was extremely fortunate. So they helped me a lot with it. And then what we did was it's geared towards me performing live because I'm at the best when I'm performing live. So we recorded many of the stories, and then I went into Newark, New Jersey, where Audible is located on this coast. And I recorded at their studios the audio stuff. So talk about when we've talked optimum audio. I mean, like the audio there is like butter. It's nice.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's pro. I mean, they're like.
Oh yeah, the guy that designed their studios is the same guy that designed the original Electric Ladyland studio. So I mean, I got to perform in that. You know, I mean, it was just like when you talk about quiet, it was like quiet on quiet on quiet. Like it was like wow. Like, but yeah, it was really wonderful. And those are almost like interstitials in between the stories. The way we did it, I mean, it came out like and then with some music and Chris Takis, who lives in Weehawken, did a lot of the editing and the sound stuff. He did a terrific job. Shout out to Chris. So yeah.
Where's Weehawken?
Weehawken is a little north of. It's almost like it goes from like Jersey City, then there's like Hoboken, and then there's Weehawken.
Okay.
And then like way up here is Fairview, where I live, like way up.
So did you pitch them an idea, or how did you get on Audible?
Yeah. I spoke with them about doing something. They were interested. They had heard my first album. They didn't know I had a second album. I sent that to them because I did that. I did the first one with Comedy Dynamics, who they produce a lot of the Netflix specials, a lot of the comedy specials. The second one I wanted to do on my own. I wanted full control. So I did live. It's called Live at the Magnet Theater. And I taped that at the school I teach at. We recorded it there. And Paul from the Moth, who's recorded many of the great Moth shows, was my engineer for that. But I self-produced that. And it came out really good as well, fortunately. And so when Audible, is this guy a one-hit wonder? And then when I sent them the second album and they listened to it, they were very interested in putting this thing together. So it was a big break, but it was timing. I was ready. It's like when they approached, I was ready. And
so they approached you, or you pitched them cold? You said when they approached.
I had someone to connect me to them. Yeah.
Okay.
But it wasn't an agent. It was a friend. It was a good friend.
Right. Well, it seems like, as we've been learning from the pros, it seems like that's how some things happen. Sometimes you do have an agent. Sometimes you're somebody, rich, famous person's child. You get that in that way. But other times people get things because of who they know, and they get along with people and doors open. There are just so many different ways to make it, to make your projects.
That's why it pays to be nice.
Now, so you're working on so many things. I mean, what are you working on now that you can talk about?
I'm working on a new pilot script. I mean, and I can't go into too many details right now, but I mean, I've been working on this for about 8 months. So just plugging away. And once I feel like it's in a good point, definitely get it out. Audio projects. I know me and you, you and I, we've talked. I'll most likely record something new for like probably a new album.
When you say album, do you mean CD, or what do you mean? Is it downloadable?
Yeah, I mean, now it's like almost like a digital album. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people do CDs anymore. It's weird, but it'll be like an album that you can buy. You could probably listen to, stream on Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music, and I'll probably record that like in January. So probably like early spring next year. I want to finish the script. I'm really excited about it. I feel it's good, but I want to get it done. DONE. Yeah. And then from there, I'll tackle the next thing. But I definitely, it seems like we're getting audiences at places now too. So I want to hopefully. I'd love to record something.
Wait, so what do you mean you're getting audiences at places? What are you talking about?
Well, I'm just like with COVID. I'm personally more comfortable performing for audiences now. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's still tough. It is still tough, but
yeah.
Once you start feeling comfortable, like Google, how is COVID right now? You know what I mean? So
Oh no, I'm still worried about it. So I think it's because of where I
yeah,
live.
me too. I mean, I'm neurotic as heck. Yeah. So
Yeah. And I think if you live in a city, I mean, either know people who had it or have it, or they know people. It's very easy. It's not like, because I've been to smaller areas and I'll say, what's up with COVID here? They're like, I don't know anybody who has it. So it's a different reality.
yeah.
So what is your writing process like? Do you write in the morning, or how do you go about it?
I mean, for me, it's like it depends on. It's when I have free time. I'm not gonna lie. I'd love to say in the morning every day. I do morning pages and stuff like that. I try to. Shouldn't say I do. I try as much as I can. But I usually do like writing for an hour in the morning when when I can. But it's when I'm going to write every day, but sometimes it depends on when I have time. You know.
Well, when you are teaching, are you teaching right now?
Yeah, yeah. I have classes now. Upcoming classes start. I'm starting a class in Manhattan for your listeners and watchers, viewers. Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 to 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you go to adamwade.com/classes. And then also I'll be teaching like an advanced class for people that have already taken my class starting this Monday coming up. Not this Monday, tomorrow, next Monday. Yeah.
And what kind of students do you have in your classes?
Yeah, people from it's awesome. It's like you talk about diversity. It's like from every different walk of life. You know, what I mean, and it makes the classes so interesting because it becomes much like our groups that we have. I have with you, Margaret. It becomes a community. It's 6. It doesn't take 6 weeks. It usually takes like 2 classes. But jerks don't take storytelling classes. Generally, I'd say 99% are just really genuinely good people. And so it's just a joy. And from young and old, I mean, I have like 18-year-old to like 90, and they're all like positive. They're positive people through a pandemic, this or that. They're positive people. It's just nice. It's beautiful.
And
It's
can
the
you
best thing. It's the best type. Like when I say work, it's like doing these shows, and then like it's a 6-week class. They work on stories, then they pick a story to work on, and then they'll tell it. And then from there, it's like a class show. It's almost like in like elementary school when we do like the show for our parents, friends and family. It's the same type of thing, but it's such a beautiful night. It like I say I have like a high. I've never had a high like that when I'm on stage. It's very close, these class shows, because they're just you see them and they and what they can do, and they show their parents and they show their friends and or loved ones. It's like it's awesome. It's awesome.
what are some, I know, I mean, this is not a class, but what are some basic concepts that people can take away about storytelling, how to structure a story, basically?
Have a beginning. I mean, I sound sarcastic here, but I mean it. Have some type of beginning, have some type of middle, and know when to end it, and have an ending. Have an ending, and know when, and don't overdo it. Don't overdo the endings. And speak from here, and don't perform it. Perform it. Just be you. What people have in these classes is so beautiful, and they embrace it. Because for me, it took years to learn that I didn't have to be a caricature. I didn't have to talk behind a guitar. In 2 weeks, 1 week, sometimes they're just getting up and they're talking, and it's just, and they're being themselves, and they're messing things up, and they're messing up the endings. They're messing up and they don't care. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. They know the story. They're trying to deliver it the way they've worked on it, and in an authentic way. And and to me, that's beautiful. There's perfection and imperfection, Margaret, when it
But
comes to
usually,
storytelling.
but usually an ending, because I've heard the Moth through NPR, and usually an ending has to resonate. So like they take you through this journey, and then they do their ending. You're like, whoa.
Mm,
It's sort of almost like literary.
yeah.
Yeah. But another thing is, when I think about when I think about performing, I think about TED Talks, because it seems like some of those people are there's actually this really funny Canadian sketch about a TED Talk, and how the guy's explaining everything people go through to deliver it. But it seems like TED Talks are more performing. it's like selling or something.
I'd say a majority of the ones I have watched are a little performing. Yes.
But you're saying that, but in storytelling, you're saying you shouldn't do that kind of thing.
I'm not saying it. I don't teach it that way.
Right. I understand. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
I
answer.
just want, I think, in my opinion, the optimal way to tell it, and again, and people can say it's his opinion, but in my opinion, like you're talking to someone at a bar or a coffee shop. That's like, why not be you, as opposed to trying to be Tony Robbins or, Brene Brown or, just be you,
Right. And it's funny because when I've seen her talks as well, and she does seem authentic. I mean, she's a professor, so she's probably used to teaching a lot and going and doing speaking and so forth. So, but so is there anything else you'd like to say? Because we've been talking for like an hour. So anything else you'd like to
No, it's great. As always, whenever I see you or get to talk to you on the phone, it's always a pleasure. And I wish you much success with this. And I look forward to our next First Friday group and talking to you about podcasts and helping me with audio. You took a lot of time in the winter months to help me, and I am extremely grateful, and I'm grateful for our friendship, Margaret.
Oh, thanks. And actually, okay, Valerie Jo Drake.
Yes.
She just posted a comment. She said, Adam's classes taught me more about being my authentic self than I even knew I was capable of! !
And one of my, I don't like to, it's not fair to say like top 5. She is a remarkable storyteller, and she put the time in, and she gets it. She understands. She just, and it's all from here when she tells her stories. Just oozing with talent, Valerie, oozing with talent.
Nice. Well, yeah. Also, I was gonna say that, if you're teaching all these people these important lessons, then I'm sure your classes will go on for a while. Do your classes get filled pretty quickly?
Yes, they do. Fortunately, all fortunately.
Yeah. And she said, Valerie said, "Thanks, Adam!"
Yeah, you're welcome, Valerie.
So, I was going to say about your students, are there any interesting stories that you can share that you've discovered along the way from your students?
I admit, like, I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing to learn. And when it comes to feedback, I try to, we all give feedback. So when each person tells a story, the 6 weeks, I'll just be quick here, but the first, we do a couple exercises, we get to know each other. Week 2, we do another exercise. I show them, and I'm doing some teaching. What makes a story good? I don't want to give it all away here in the podcast, but I go over a lot of this stuff, and then we work on them together, and we get to know. And by then, when we're working on the stories and critiquing them, we know each other. If we're doing feedback and critiquing week 1, they don't know each other. So how good is that feedback going to be? So once they get to know each other, weeks 4 and 5 and 6, they're getting optimal feedback. And that's where they take off. The stories. And so when we have like the class show that I was talking about before, it's so beautiful because it's not just their story, it's the class's story. We've all worked on it together. We all have our fingerprints on them. And it means something. So when they're getting feedback, including my own, they could be like, thanks, Adam, but I think I'm going to go in a different direction. That's how they're supposed to. They're not trying to please everybody and take everybody, because some of them will email me stressed out. Like, oh my, I can't use Joe. I can't use Fred. I can't use Sally's feedback. I'm stressed out. I'm like, no, use right now for this version, use what works best for you. So it's wonderful.
So people, I know you're doing a lot of different things. So people want to know what's going on. They go to adamwade.com.
Adamwade.com. Need the hits.
So all the information's there, all your main information.
Yeah, classes, corporate. I do a lot of corporate classes. You name it, one-on-ones, you name it. I'm here.
And then also a link to your Audible and so forth. It's audible.com.
Oh yeah. Oh, hello. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Hello. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, And I'm going to stop recording right now, but I'm right. So I'm recording. So let me also stop this live stream, and thanks for everybody for
take care, everybody.
Yeah. And Valerie, thanks for participating.
Bye, Val.